Swabot. Students will be able to simplify fractions. Okay, look how this video starts it out. He starts us with a question. He says, let's see if you can work this out first. Which of the following is 48/64 in lowest terms? So at the top of your page, I want you just to make your guess. Is it 48/32, 6/8, 24/32, or none of these? Would you pick one of those choices and write it at the top of your page, please? One of these 4 choices. And I'm just going to click none of these for now. Well, no, I'm going to make a guess. I'm going to say 48/64 in lowest, 64th in lowest terms. I don't know. Would you guys agree with me? Maybe it's 6/8. Yeah. Let's pick that one. All right. Submit. Oh, he said no. So let's find out why we're wrong. Let's keep watching.
Terms. Let's see if we can visualize this. So we have 64. I guess 64 would be a hole. So let's draw a hole here. So let's say that's a hole. Maybe we're talking about a candy bar. So let me draw the hole.
You're going to draw this too.
Talking about a whole candy bar. That would be 64/4 would be the whole candy bar right there. And 48 of the 64. You could imagine splitting this up into 64 super small pieces. You wouldn't be able to see what I drew here. But if we had 48 of them would get us about that much of them. So that would be the 48
see where he
out
drew
of the
that
64.
line?
That would.
If we get the lights, we can see that better. Is all that natural light coming in? Let's see if that makes it show. Can you see it now? Yeah. So draw your line about right there where he drew it.
Be the 48 out of the 64. So this whole blue area is 64. The 48 is this purple area right over here. So let me write it over here. 48 over 64. And we want to write it in lowest terms. And we'll talk more about what lowest terms even means. Now, is there a way to group these 48 or these 64 into groups of numbers that will maybe simplify them a little bit? And to think about that, you have to think about what is the largest factor that is common to both 48 and 64.
Okay, so here's what the next question that pops up. It says, to find the largest factor, we need to think about numbers that are factors of both the numerator and the denominator. So this relates back to?
Is this familiar?
Yes.
Common factors?
Common factors. Yeah, we're trying to find that. So it says check all that apply. So let's see here real quick. So you should have 48/64 on your page. You should have that candy bar drawn with a line. And now it says check all that apply. Which of the following numbers are factors of both 48 and 64? Can you tell by looking at them that 2 is?
Yeah.
How do we know that? Haley, how do we know that? They're both even. Good. What about 3? Is 3? How can we tell real quick if 3 is a factor of both? Ethan? Division? What do you mean? Well, actually, there's a simpler way. What's the divisibility rule for 3? So what's 4 plus 8?
12.
Can you divide 12 by 3?
Yeah.
Yes. What's 6 plus 4?
10.
Can you divide 10 by 3?
Yeah.
No. Okay, so you'd have a remainder, so it can't be 3. What about 5?
No.
And how do you know that? How do you know that, Austin?
Because if you add 4 plus 8, you get 12.
Hold on.
10.
No. Think about the divisibility rule for 5.
Oh, it has to end with a 0 or 5?
Or 5, and neither one do. So no 5. What about 8?
Yeah.
Can you divide 48 by 8?
Yeah.
Can you divide 64 evenly by 8?
Yes.
Yes, so let's check 8. So go ahead and list these out for me. 2 and 8, those are factors of 48 and 64. What about 16? Don't know, right? Let's do that on your paper. Go ahead and I want you to take 48 divided by 16. 64 divided by 16.
But yeah, you get the...
How many 16s are there in Claire Hickey? What'd you come up with?
16 divided by 48 divided by 3.
16. Okay, what about 64 and 16? Is there a number you can multiply 16 by to get exactly to 64? Brendan?
Wait, yeah. Yeah, 4 is 5.
16
16 times
times 4 will get you 64?
4. 5. Yeah. 16 times 4 is 64.
Try again, Haley. I do think they're right when they say 4.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so look, 16 is a factor of both. What about 24? Is 24 a factor of 48?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 24s make 48. What about of 64?
Yeah.
Prove it. 24 times what number would get you to 64?
Oh, 64.
Yeah. We know it's a factor of 48. Now we're trying to determine if it's a factor of 64 as well. Comes in handy to know your facts, doesn't it? No, Gabe says no, and he's right. And I know that 32 can't be, because 2 32s would get me a number. It would get me to 64, but it couldn't do 32 into 48 evenly. Okay, so let's submit. So far we've determined that 2, 8, and 16 are factors of both 48 and 64. Let me hit submit, see if we're right. Yes, got a smiling. All right.
Or you could think of it as, what is their greatest common divisor? Well, the largest number that I can think of that goes into 48, well, you could do it either by just thinking about it, or you could actually write out all of its factors. But if you were to write all the factors for 48 and all the factors for 64, the one that pops out at me as the largest that goes into both is 16. So you could say that 48 is equal to, well, what is it? It's 3 times 16. 3 times 16. And 64 is 4 times 16 over 4 times 16. Now this is interesting. So this 48 that we drew in magenta right here, we could view this as 3 groups of 16. So that's 1, 2, let me make them a little bit more even. So 1, 2, 3 groups of 16. So that's 16, that's 16, and that is 16. That would be 48. I could draw 16 bars here. So
Okay, understand what he's illustrating here? So he's showing that it takes, if this whole rectangle represents the whole number 64, three parts of it, or 16, 16, and 16 represent, what number are we representing right here? In the purple?
16.
Now, if you take all 3 16s, what number is that?
48.
That's your 48 right there. 3 16s are 48. What does this last box represent then?
16.
Yes, great. This box right here? Just this box. What number do you think he's going to put there? This one's 16, this one's 16, this one's 16. 16, because we know 4 16s makes 64.
we have 16 pieces, but that's a group of 16, a group of 16, and a group of 16. That's what 48 is. Now 64 is 4 groups of 16. So we could make, if you look at the 64, that is a 16, that is a 16, that is a 16, and then that is another 16. These should all be the same length. I drew it a little bit off. So what is 48 over 64 in lowest terms? If we want to write this as a simple possible fraction. Well, if we make each of the pieces equal to 16 of our old pieces, if we make this into one piece, we turn 16 into 1, then we are talking about, instead of 48 over 64, we're talking about 3. So this is 1 piece, 2 pieces, 3 pieces of a total of 4. So this is going to be equal to 3 over 4. And hopefully you see kind of a mathematical way of immediately thinking about it. If you can factor this out, and you can actually factor out its greatest common factor, so 48 is 3 times 16, 64 is 4 times 16, and then these cancel each other out. You could view this is equivalent to 3 over 4 times 16 over 16. over 16. This is the same thing as that. And 16/16 is 1. And you're just left with 3 over 4. Now, if you didn't immediately recognize that 16 goes into both 48 and 64, you could do it step by step. You could do it step by step. So
And this typically may be a way that you get to this next part that he's going to show you is a way that, and just a different way of doing it if you don't recognize the GCF first. There's a way you could take it down one more step, and down one more step. So make sure you make note of this on your paper as well.
let's say we started off with 48 over 64. Now the key thing to remember with any fraction, whatever you do the numerator, you have to do the denominator. So let's say we divide the numerator. So if we divide the numerator by 2, we also have to divide the denominator by 2. So we could get to, we know that these are both divisible by 2, they're both even, so that would get us to 24 over 32. We'll say, well look, these two numbers, those are both divisible by 2. Well, let's see if they come with a larger number. Well, actually they're both divisible by 4, so maybe you don't realize that they're also both divisible by 8. So let's say you did it with 4. So now we divide the top by 4. So we're going to divide by 4. We get 6. You have to do the same to the bottom, to the denominator. Divide by 4. You get 8. So 48 over 64 is the same thing as 24 over 32, which is the same thing as 6/8. And these are both divisible by 2. So if you divide the numerator by 2, you get 3. You divide the denominator by 2, you get 4. And so this is the simplest possible terms, because 3 and 4 share no common factors greater than 1. So we're in lowest possible terms. So however you want to do it, the easiest way is, or the fastest way is say, hey, 16 is the biggest number that goes into both of these. Divide both by 16, you get 3/4. And really when you're dividing the numerator and denominator by 16, you're turning groups of 16 into one piece, or 16 super small pieces of the pie into one bigger piece of the pie. So this goes from 64 pieces to 4 pieces. This goes from 48 pieces to 3 pieces.
Okay, so let's do one together now before we give you your quick check. Okay, so let's see if you can. Go ahead. Oh, jump right in. Yeah.
2 questions. I'm going to go back to Chloe's.